Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today I'm going to take you on a journey through the fascinating world of Islam in Argentina. It's a story that spans centuries, filled with immigration, cultural blending, and the challenges of maintaining identity in a new land. We'll explore how Islam first arrived on Argentine shores, look at the numbers and makeup of the Muslim community today, peek into their daily lives, and discuss some of the hurdles they face, including the sensitive topic of Islamophobia. Let's start with history. The roots of Islam in Argentina go back to the colonial period. Some of the earliest Muslims were actually African slaves brought over by Spanish colonizers in the 16th and 17th centuries. Many of these enslaved people came from West African regions where Islam was prevalent. However, their religious practices were often suppressed or hidden under the dominant Catholic colonial system. The real growth of the Muslim community in Argentina kicked off in the late 19th century. This was part of a larger wave of immigration from the Middle East, particularly from areas that were then part of the Ottoman Empire. We're talking about people from Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine mainly. These immigrants were often called Turcos, Turks, by the locals, not because they were actually Turkish, but because they carried Ottoman passports. This wave of immigration was driven by a few factors. The Ottoman Empire was in decline, and many people were looking for better economic opportunities. Some were also fleeing religious persecution. Argentina, with its open immigration policies at the time, seemed like a land of opportunity. These early Muslim immigrants settled in various parts of Argentina, but many gravitated towards urban centers, especially Buenos Aires. They often started out as peddlers or small merchants, gradually building up their businesses and integrating into Argentine society. In the early 20th century, we see the establishment of the first formal Islamic organizations in Argentina. The first mosque in the country was built in 1929 in Buenos Aires. This was a big deal for the community, giving them a proper place to worship and gather. During World War II, there was another wave of Muslim immigration, this time including people fleeing from other parts of the world affected by the conflict. In the latter half of the 20th century, the Muslim community in Argentina continued to grow and diversify. We saw more immigrants coming from other Muslim-majority countries, including some from Africa and Asia. There was also a growing number of Argentine converts to Islam. It's worth noting that throughout this history, many Muslims in Argentina have practiced a more secular or cultural form of Islam, adapting to the predominantly Catholic culture around them. Some families maintained their Muslim identity primarily through cultural practices rather than strict religious observance. In recent decades, there's been a bit of an Islamic revival among some Argentine Muslims, with more interest in religious education and practice. This has led to the construction of more mosques and Islamic centers across the country. So that's a bit more detail on how Islam spread to and developed in Argentina. It's really a story of immigration, adaptation, and gradual community building over several centuries. All right, let's dive deeper into the numbers and demographics of Muslims in Argentina. This is a bit tricky because, as I mentioned earlier, Argentina doesn't include religion in its official census. So we're working with estimates and surveys from various sources. Most recent estimates put the Muslim population in Argentina at around 1 to 2% of the total population. Given that Argentina's total population is about 45 million, we're looking at roughly 400,000 to 800,000 Muslims. Some sources give lower estimates, around 400,000, 500,000, while others go as high as 700,000, 800,000. The Islamic organizations of Latin America suggests there could be up to 1 million Muslims in Argentina, but this is generally considered to be on the high end of estimates. When it comes to the split between Sunni and Shia Muslims, it's even harder to get precise figures. However, the majority of Muslims in Argentina are Sunni, probably around 90% of the Muslim population. The remaining 10% is made up of Shia Muslims and other smaller sects or groups within Islam. It's worth noting that within the Sunni majority, you'll find various schools of thought and levels of religious observance. Some Argentine Muslims are quite devout, while others identify more culturally than religiously as Muslim. The Shia community, while smaller, is active and has its own mosques and cultural centers, particularly in Buenos Aires. There's also a small Ahmadiyya community, which some mainstream Muslims don't consider to be part of Islam. In terms of ethnic background, the Muslim community in Argentina is quite diverse. Many are descendants of early Arab immigrants from Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine. There are also more recent immigrants from other parts of the Middle East, North Africa, and South Asia. And of course, there's a growing number of Argentine converts to Islam. It's important to understand that these numbers can fluctuate. Immigration patterns, conversion rates, and natural population growth all play a role. Some researchers suggest that the Muslim population in Argentina is growing faster than the general population, both due to immigration and higher birth rates. One interesting trend is the growing number of Latino converts to Islam, especially among women. This is contributing to the changing face of Islam in Argentina and throughout Latin America. Remember, all these figures are estimates. The lack of official data makes it challenging to get a completely accurate picture. But these numbers give us a general idea of the size and composition of the Muslim community in Argentina. All right, let's get into the daily lives of Muslims in Argentina and where they're concentrated. This is pretty interesting stuff. Muslims in Argentina are generally well integrated into society. You'll find them in all sorts of professions: doctors, lawyers, teachers, business owners, you name it. They're part of the fabric of Argentine life, but they also maintain their unique cultural and religious identities to varying degrees. In terms of where they live, Muslims are spread out across Argentina, but there are definitely some areas with higher concentrations. Buenos Aires, the capital and largest city, has the biggest Muslim population. The neighborhood of Palermo in Buenos Aires is sometimes called Barrio Árabe, Arab Quarter, because of its historically high concentration of Arab immigrants, many of whom are Muslim. Other cities with significant Muslim populations include Córdoba, Rosario, and Mendoza. There are also Muslim communities in smaller towns and rural areas, often centered around mosques or Islamic centers. Daily life for Muslims in Argentina often involves balancing their religious practices with the predominantly Catholic culture around them. Many Muslims attend Friday prayers at local mosques. The Islamic Center of the Argentine Republic in Buenos Aires is a major hub for the community, offering not just a place for prayer but also Islamic education and cultural events. During Ramadan, you might see more visible signs of Muslim life. Some restaurants in areas with large Muslim populations might stay open late to cater to those breaking their fast after sunset. There are often community iftars, the meal to break the fast, organized by mosques or Islamic organizations. Halal food is becoming more widely available in Argentina, especially in larger cities. There are halal butchers, and some supermarkets now stock halal products. However, it can still be a challenge in some areas, and many Muslims adapt by following halal guidelines as best they can with available foods. Islamic education is important for many Muslim families. Some send their children to Islamic schools or weekend classes to learn about their religion and culture. There are also Arabic language classes offered by various community organizations. Many Argentine Muslims are active in interfaith dialogue and community outreach. They participate in cultural events, charity work, and other activities that help bridge understanding between Muslims and non-Muslims. It's worth noting that levels of religious observance vary widely among Argentine Muslims. Some are very devout and strictly follow Islamic practices, while others might identify more culturally as Muslim, but not necessarily follow all religious customs. In terms of dress, you'll see a range of styles. Some Muslim women wear hijabs or other traditional Islamic dress, while others dress in typical Argentine fashion. Men generally dress in mainstream Argentine styles, though some might wear traditional garments for religious occasions. Overall, the daily life of Muslims in Argentina is a blend of their Islamic heritage and Argentine culture. They're an integral part of the country's diverse society, contributing to its cultural, economic, and social landscape while maintaining their unique identities. All right, let's talk about some of the challenges that Muslims in Argentina face. Like any minority group, they've got their share of issues to deal with. One of the biggest problems is the lack of official recognition of Islam as a religion by the Argentine state. Now, this might sound odd given that freedom of religion is guaranteed by the Constitution, But here's the deal. Argentina has a system where religions can register for official recognition, which comes with certain benefits. Catholicism is recognized in the Constitution, and a few other religions like Judaism and some Christian denominations are officially registered. But Islam isn't, at least not yet. This lack of official recognition can cause practical problems. It makes it harder for the Muslim community to get funding for religious schools or to have Muslim holidays officially recognized. It can also complicate things like getting permission to build new mosques or Islamic centers. Another challenge is maintaining cultural and religious identity, especially for younger generations. Many young Argentine Muslims feel caught between two worlds: the traditional Muslim culture of their parents or grandparents and the mainstream Argentine culture they've grown up in. This can lead to a bit of an identity crisis for some. Language can be a barrier for some members of the community, especially newer immigrants or older folks who might not be fluent in Spanish. This can make it harder to access services or fully participate in society. There's also the challenge of representation. Muslims are underrepresented in politics, media, and other high-profile areas of Argentine society. This can make it harder for their voices and concerns to be heard in the national conversation. Discrimination, while not as severe as in some other countries, does happen. Some Muslims report experiencing prejudice or stereotyping, especially in the aftermath of global events that put Islam in the spotlight. This can manifest in subtle ways like difficulty finding employment or housing. The community also faces internal challenges. There can be tensions between more traditional and more progressive elements within the Muslim community, disagreements over religious interpretation, or conflicts between different ethnic groups who happen to share the same faith. Economic issues affect the Muslim community, as they do all Argentines, but some Muslims feel these impacts more acutely. For example, economic downturns can hit immigrant communities particularly hard. Access to halal food and products can be a challenge, especially outside of major urban areas. While this is improving, it can still be difficult for Muslims to find products that meet their religious dietary requirements. Lastly, there's the ongoing challenge of education and awareness. Many Argentine Muslims feel that there's a lack of understanding about Islam in the broader society, which can lead to misunderstandings or stereotypes. They often find themselves in the position of having to educate others about their faith and culture. Despite these challenges, it's important to note that many Argentine Muslims report feeling generally accepted and integrated into society. The community is actively working to address these issues, advocating for greater recognition and understanding, and continuing to build bridges with other communities in Argentina. Finally, let us turn to the issue of Islamophobia in Argentina. This is a sensitive subject, but I'll try to give you a balanced picture based on the information available. Overall, Argentina is generally considered to be relatively tolerant compared to some other countries when it comes to its Muslim population. There isn't widespread, organized anti-Muslim sentiment or large-scale Islamophobic movements like you might see in some parts of Europe or North America. That said, it doesn't mean Islamophobia is completely absent. Instances of Islamophobia in Argentina tend to be more subtle and sporadic rather than systemic. They often stem from ignorance or misunderstanding rather than organized hatred. For example, some Muslims report experiencing occasional discrimination or prejudice in everyday situations, like difficulty renting apartments or facing extra scrutiny in public spaces. There aren't any prominent, organized anti-Islam groups in Argentina that I'm aware of. The country doesn't have a strong, far-right political movement that targets Muslims specifically, unlike some European countries. However, individual acts of discrimination or hate speech do occur. Global events can sometimes trigger spikes in anti-Muslim sentiment. For instance, after major terrorist attacks in other parts of the world, some Argentine Muslims report feeling increased suspicion or hostility from others. This is often fueled by sensationalist media coverage that can reinforce stereotypes about Muslims. One area where some argue Islamophobia manifests is in the lack of official recognition of Islam by the Argentine state, as mentioned earlier. While this isn't necessarily driven by anti-Muslim sentiment, some see it as a form of institutional discrimination. There have been occasional controversies that have sparked debates about Islam in Argentina. For example, there was some public pushback against plans to build a large mosque in Buenos Aires a few years ago, with some opponents using Islamophobic rhetoric. It's worth noting that anti-Semitism is generally considered a more prevalent issue in Argentina than Islamophobia, given the country's larger and more established Jewish community. On the positive side, there are efforts to combat Islamophobia and promote understanding. Many Muslim organizations in Argentina are active in interfaith dialogue and community outreach. They work to educate the public about Islam and challenge stereotypes. There are also some non-Muslim allies and organizations that speak out against discrimination and support Muslim rights. The Argentine government has generally taken a stance against religious discrimination of all kinds, including Islamophobia. However, some in the Muslim community feel that more could be done to address specific concerns of Muslims. Education is seen as a key tool in combating Islamophobia. There are calls for more comprehensive education about Islam and other religions in schools to promote understanding and tolerance. In the media, while there is sometimes problematic coverage that can reinforce stereotypes, there are also efforts to provide more nuanced and accurate portrayals of Muslims and Islam. It's important to note that experiences can vary widely among individual Muslims in Argentina. Some report feeling fully accepted and integrated, while others have experienced discrimination or feel marginalized. Overall, while Islamophobia exists in Argentina, it's generally not as severe or organized as in some other countries. The challenge is often more about overcoming ignorance and misconceptions than combating active hatred. The Muslim community in Argentina continues to work towards greater understanding and acceptance, contributing to the country's diverse cultural landscape. Our discovery about Islam in Argentina is coming to an end. I hope you found this journey through history, culture, and contemporary life as fascinating as I did. From the early Muslim immigrants to today's vibrant and diverse community, it's clear that Islam has become an integral part of Argentina's rich cultural tapestry. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about different cultures and religions around the world, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll be the first to know when we release new content diving into other interesting topics like this one. Remember, understanding and appreciating our differences is key to building a more inclusive world. So, let's keep learning together. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and don't forget to leave a comment below, sharing your thoughts or any questions you might have. Until next time, ciao from Argentina. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.